You're listening to Creative Confidential, a podcast for creative people about the law, art, culture, business, and the way forward. Presented by Tuk Business and Entertainment Law.
Hello, everyone. It is Bryan Tuk, your host for the Creative Confidential podcast. Very glad to be back with you, and we have our old friend with us, William Childs. This interview was recorded live in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania a few weeks ago in front of an audience, and there's some Q&A at the end of this one that I think really is worthwhile. I hope you get something out of this, something positive. There's some good energy in this conversation. We want to thank, of course, Lehigh University for sponsoring these live interviews. And today's episode of Creative Confidential is brought to you by Lehigh University, one of the nation's most distinguished private research universities. Lehigh's work in education, research, and innovation seeks to bring together disparate disciplines and approaches to understand and solve today's problems and challenge students to be leaders of the future. Our guest today, William Childs. Here we go. Let's have a quick round of applause for marketer, creative consultant, writer, public speaker. What else can we call you? Teacher, right? Podcaster. Bill Childs.
Thank you.
Okay. So Bill's written a terrific book called Child's Play, and you know, I really enjoy our conversations because Bill's got a very clean way of moving through a bunch of inputs. So we may be talking about something, and I'll have 3 or 4 things that I'm concerned about, and Bill will go, no. Here's what the final product should look like, and here's how you get there. And he can draw a very straight line through a messy setup, and usually I'm bringing the mess. How do I do this? So Bill, tell us about Child's Play. Tell us about the book, and Bill will be available after we break here. Bill will be available to say hello and sign some copies if you are so interested. Tell us about Child's Play.
Okay. Well, first, I want to just take a moment and just acknowledge just all of the work that everyone has done to bring this event together. Lehigh, Arts Quest Fest, the people that helped set this up today, the technicians. It's a lot of moving parts, and I think you got to take a second and just kind of congratulate, a round of applause for yourself and everyone else that was involved with this. Beautiful job. I would love to see this event continue, and even though it's just getting started, I hope that it continues on because I think it's important. Okay, so why did I write the book? Very simple. I wrote the book because it was the book that I needed to read when I was starting out. That's kind of like how I looked at it. I looked at it like, a lot of books out there on creativity and leadership and marketing and all kinds of stuff, and they're great, and I've read most of them, if not all of them. But I still felt like something was missing in a lot of the books, and that they, to your point of what you're saying about, I am very good at taking complex things and boiling them down to their core essence. That is something that I learned to do in my years working at Adams Outdoor, and where you're taking outdoor messages and you're condensing them down. I know the old chestnut is 7 words or less. I like to even think if we can go even less, it's even better. But that's why I wrote the book. And a secondary reason why I wrote it was there was an author named Hugh MacLeod. He wrote a wonderful book called Ignore Everybody, which is a book on creativity. The subhead is, and 39 other keys to creativity. So the one message is ignore everybody. So whatever message you're getting, he's telling you to ignore. But chapter 10 of that book was a chapter that said, we all have our own private Mount Everest that we were put on this earth to climb, right? And he said, it doesn't matter if you never make it to the top. What matters if you don't make one serious attempt to get above the snow line. And he said, and this is what got me, he said, years later, you're going to be lying in your bed and you are going to be consumed with the type of regret that it is crippling. And I thought, I don't want that. I better write this book. So Hugh MacLeod, And chapter 10 of Ignore Everybody is what kind of finally spearheaded me wanting to write it.
What would you say was your? I think what this show is about, what this project is about, is I'm a recovering attorney. I know that phrase is a tired one, but it's true. And in my professional life, I worked with a lot of small businesses, true startups that are working out of their home, to maybe 50 employees would be the biggest type of company I would typically work with. And they all had in their story of how their product or service got launched, what gave them the idea. When you keep moving backwards in their professional life, there's a moment, and they decide, okay, this is what I am going to do for the next 10 or 20 years. For you, was there such a time? And if so, what was it?
No, because I had no choice in this matter. This was a career that I was absolutely chosen to have. There was no, it was from early on. I can remember earliest recollections of just always wanting to color, like just constant coloring and drawing. So, but I didn't know how that could turn into a career, right? But I just knew that is what I wanted. And as I went through my schooling, and it really kicked off when I got to Lehigh County Votech. That's what it was called at the time. Now it's LCTI. But I took commercial art, and that just lit me up inside. I was like, oh, here it is. This is it. And all the students that I was in the class with were all the best students from all the other, school districts. So it was kind of like, this is it. Let's see if you can you hang in this environment? Because you're now jumping into an environment with the best of the best from all around the Lehigh Valley. And that was it. Once that spark got lit, there was no turning back.
I think you just uncovered it.
What?
Right?
Yeah.
Your time at that school. Mm-hmm. So sometimes you raise a great point. Sometimes your professional life chooses you, whether or not you are receptive to it is another matter, right? And so not to make this about me, but I think this illustrates your point. So when I worked for other people, I worked for other people. I was a late bloomer. I didn't start my own practice till I was 41, and 2 kids and college right around the bend for them, and a lot of overhead. And I felt so unhappy in the traditional model,
right?
Because I was trying to do something that other people wanted to. Other people were prescribing. This is how you do these things, and you wear these shoes, and you drive this car, and you hit a golf club, hit the golf balls every weekend or whatever it is. And it just wasn't my thing. And once I realized I wasn't fighting against circumstance or other people, I was fighting against myself.
Right.
And once I realized that, I kind of just started doing my own thing, and I thought, okay, I can make my own business work. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And once I did that, the ability to sleep through the night and not be up on Sunday worrying about work or not wanting to go into the office, all of that evaporated immediately. It was wild.
That's interesting. It's actually, if anybody wants to find out if you're in the right job, take notice of yourself and your body around Sunday night at 4:00 in the evening. If you start to feel a little anxious and you're not sure why, that's your body telling you that it knows that Monday morning is coming, and you're probably, you're anxious, you're nervous, you're worried about it. And I've just found whenever I worked at a job where I loved it, I didn't have that happen on a Sunday night. Sunday nights, it was almost like Friday nights were the disappointment, because now I had to wait the weekend to go back to work on Monday. I'm serious. I had jobs like that already. And it's magic. It's magical. When you have that, you are more of yourself. You're more your authentic self. You're vibing at a high level. You're more agreeable to be around people. Your confidence level goes up. You do better work. I keep going on. Like that is how powerful it is when you're working in a career that you connect with, that you see as something bigger than yourself. I have a chapter in the book where I talk about do work that feeds your soul, not your ego. And I see a lot of people, like you said, the car, the golf range, or the country club membership, right? So you were kind of like gathering the uniform of that profession. But were you happy? Did you feel authentic?
No.
Well, there you go.
What's next for you? I know we're all over the place, but this is the way these things go with Bill.
Okay.
I like to keep him on his toes.
Okay. Well, after a 40-year career in advertising and marketing, working at a multitude of media companies around the area, ad agencies, a technology company for a while, I went into teaching. I pivoted and I took a teaching role, kind of ironic, in the class that I taught, or that I was in at LCTI. I'm now teaching that class. So you want to talk about
full circle,
like a full
moment,
circle moment? Yeah. It was, and I'm going into my third year. So if anyone who is a teacher, they'll know that like the saying is that the third year is where it all comes together. Like it all just, the first year is survival. You're just trying to survive, which that I found to be true. Second year, you learn a little bit more. Last year was a good year, but this year, I'm excited for this year. So to answer your question, more of the teaching, probably another book on the way. And I really want to try to take this on the road with speaking engagements, like getting paid to speak, going into companies, helping them set up creative cultures, working with management to try to show them how to do it. And anybody can do it. We're all born creative. But that's kind of what I want to do. I want to take this to the next level in terms of speaking engagements and going around and just, advising people on how to reconnect with their creativity. That's what I want to do.
Well, and it's when you get locked, and this is, I think, I hate this term, but I have to use it because I don't know what else to call it. The professional services, right? Accountancy, law, etc. Like when you're in, I can only speak really from that perspective because that's what I lived. But when you're in a very conformist environment, right? And this can exist in companies also. The larger the companies are, especially these days. Now, we don't do politics on this show, but we do have to at least mention, like there used to only be two things that you don't talk about, right? Or the old saying, you don't talk about politics or religion at the dinner table, right? That was it. And if you could not do those two things, you'd be fine. And we're now in this weird place where everyone feels compelled to share everything. And from a company standpoint, you have customers that are making choices based on things totally unrelated to the quality. No matter how good your product or service is, if you say the wrong thing,
you get canceled.
You got a big problem, right? And if you're a public company, you have legal responsibilities to your shareholders. You might have shareholder derivative suits for taking political stances. I mean, these are the things that are starting to unfold. So let's take a hypothetical, for example. So you're walking into a mid-size. Let's take a Lehigh Valley company. We've got we have 500 employees, annual revenues, $200 million. Okay. It's a big enterprise.
Okay.
And I'm the CEO. We're going to do one of these. Okay. Now, how can I be cutting edge with our messaging and not step in it? That would be my charge to you if we were having this conversation. Right. So let's take me through your thought process there.
Okay. Well, I do this with companies, and one of the things, the first question I ask them is, what are you really selling? So what that means is, let's say you're a mattress store, right? Let's just, for this hypothetical, you're a mattress store, and I come in, I look at your store, it's clean, it's well lit, your employees, everything's where it's supposed to be, but in your marketing, you're selling mattresses. And I would say, why are you doing that? And you would look at me and say, because I'm in the mattress business. And I would say, no, you're in the good night's sleep business. So right there, if we just start right there with you sell or need to be selling a good night's sleep, and trust me, there are huge benefits for getting a good night's sleep. There's TED Talks on it. It's crazy the stuff that happens to your body when you get a full night's sleep. So that's where I would start. And when you start there, because the focus is on, what you're really selling, that's going to resonate with your customers, as opposed to, a payment plan to buy the newest mattress with some of these mattresses now, they come with, cup holders and, they're you know what I mean? They're very complex. They're not just mattresses anymore. And you sell all that and you have all that, and that's great, but you need to be selling the importance of a good night's sleep. I worked with DeWalt's RV. They were an RV dealer for a lot of years in the Lehigh Valley. And I'll never forget the day we walked into him and we said, Tom, you got to stop selling RVs. And he's like, what are you talking about? That's what I sell. No, destinations. We're going to rework all of your messaging to sell the destination. The RV is just going to get you there. But DeWalt's is going to help you figure out where you're going to go, where you want to go. And we even put that right into their logo. The cut line was, what's your destination? So all the messaging, and this was before Go RVing did it. I want to make that for the record. Like I forget what year this might have been, 2004, 2005, but all of the messaging got reworked for DeWalt's to, where are you going? What are you doing? I'll give you an example. We did a billboard campaign, showed a family, and the headline was, the farther you go, the closer you get. See, we're selling the destination. So that's what I would say to you. And then I would want to look at how you lead your company. I would want to look at what your employees think of you, how you interact in meetings. Do you shut down innovation? Are you someone that feels like they have to have all the answers? Which we'd have to have a real tough conversation about that.
On a personal, but yes.
But you are the lawyer, so in that sense, I'll defer on that one. But yeah, but if you're in the mattress store, now you're, I got to know, if people are coming up with ideas, how do you handle that? Do you shut it down, or what do you do, Because that's important. That's important in setting up a creative culture and building that trust. And a lot of times where people get tripped up in setting up creative cultures, is they think, we'll get the foosball table and the pinball machine and a couple beanbag chairs. We're creative now, right? And the people are looking around at each other going, no, I don't have time to go down to that room anyway. So it's more about, it starts with the leader. It has to start at the top. It has to start with you and how you roll. Do you lead with, your ego in check? Do you lead with, caring more about the people that you work with than even yourself? Because true leadership is servanthood, right? That's what I learned.
It should be. I agree.
Right. When it's done well, it should be. It should be. And I got to experience it out of 40 years. I got to experience it 2 years at Adams Outdoor Advertising. And this is probably what my next book is going to be about. Me walking into that environment, because I was coming out of the morning call as a black and white copy and layout artist, right? Had no business being at Adams Outdoor Advertising. I just want to put that, no business. And I just remember thinking, I really hope I get this job because I think it would be fun to do outdoor. And I had no idea. Because at the time, John Hayes, the general manager, totally reinvented his company and said, we're not selling signs on the road anymore. We're going to sell design. We're going to sell creativity. And I was like, okay. And then he said something which I thought, well, this will last about 2 months. He said, the artists are going to have the final say on what goes up on the road. And I looked at the other artists and I was like, yeah, we'll see about that. And you know what? He held true to that. He held true to that. And it was amazing. Everything. I was firing on all cylinders. I was doing the best work of my career. Was helping clients like crazy. The designs looked great. The market looked good. And when John Hayes laid out the plan, if we followed the plan, number 9 was increased revenue.
Number 9.
In a traditional model, that would have been number 1,
right?
And we'd all would have been chasing, the dollar and not really. There's no mission in that. That's an outcome. Making money is an outcome. That's not a mission. And John was very specific on his mission. He said, "We are going to reject client creative that we don't think is worthy of going up on the road." And I was like, "What? I'd never. That's crazy."
That's the first time I've ever heard anybody say that.
He walked away from money. He walked away from money because clients were not willing to kind of simplify the messages. And that's where I got good at simplifying complex things. And we would just tell them, go to the newspaper. You know, you got 40 words on this billboard. No one's going to read it. Go to the newspaper. So that's what we would do. And you'd be surprised. A lot of times when you would tell someone, hey, maybe outdoor isn't for you. Maybe we should think about, you know, they would be willing to like listen and say, well, how would we fix this? How would you adjust this? And a lot of times we would do that, and the board would go up, and it would be successful. But those were the 2 best years out of 40 years. And when I left Adams Outdoor, I went to an agency, and I tried to bring that leadership style along with me to all the other companies that I worked at, and it worked because John put everybody else first. He would sit in those meetings, in the creative sessions, and everyone else would talk. And the only time he would talk was when someone would ask him, say, John, what do you think? And he would always do this, the greatest thing. He'd pause. Like he would just say, he'd go like this, here's what I think. And you just were like waiting to hang on what he was going to say because it was like E.F. Hutton. But yeah, I can't say enough about that time. That really set me up for all of this now. Just looking at the way, you know, you lead people, the way you want to inspire people. I bring it into teaching. I bring it into my teaching. I try to run that way where I say to the students, I say, look, I'm going to assign projects to you. Your job is to do those projects in an effort to figure out who you are. And is this something you want to do? Because I teach level 1. And well, and then that's what they do. And then throughout the year, you know, I'm working with them on getting them to expand their comfort zone. So public speaking, we do weekly public speaking. You never heard of that in an art class, right? I do it because I know they need it. They need that skill. And it's been fun, and being in a teaching creativity to these students, you know, teaching them how to look at the world differently, how to look at the world through a creative lens. That's the stuff that's been so fulfilling, which is why I want to take it to the next level and maybe take it on the road and take it to, you know, see how far I can take it. I want to say something else too. You know, living a creative life is not easy. There is actual research that was done out of Illinois recently. It was released in March, where they looked at how creative people are viewed. And I guess I shouldn't be shocked, but we're viewed as noxious and disruptive by people that are in companies, because you can always tell the person with the creative person with the ideas, because they're the most excited. They have the thoughts. They want to kind of contribute, and that's how they know how to contribute. But it can be tough. Choosing to live a creative life is tough because it's one of those professions. You know, there is no starving lawyer. As far as I know, there's no starving accountant, but we have the term starving artist, don't we? Which I hate, by the way.
Well, we should. I think for the purpose,
I didn't starve.
I think for the purposes of the conversation, let's carve out. I know, like, so you used a word, disruption.
Yeah.
And that has become very fashionable. We're going to disrupt the music industry. We're going to disrupt this. Yep. We're going to disrupt that. Let's just kind of carve out Silicon Valley, like that kind of ethos. Let's just kind of put that to the side and kind of look at this from a Lehigh Valley perspective, from a Pennsylvania perspective, right? So so a lot of the things you're saying I have experienced firsthand. And it's an odd thing because it makes you less certain of things that you actually are 100% correct on. So if you are, like, for example, like let's say you just you passed your CPA. Let's pick on the accountants.
Yeah.
Are there any accountants in the audience? Can we get
Nobody should want to be known as a creative accountant.
We all need accountants. We all need accountants.
Yeah, not creative ones though. That's the only job where creativity
that will
is
get
not
you in
required.
jail. Yeah, that'll you'll have.
You don't want to be known as that guy,
right,
or lady.
So, all right. So let's say we just passed our CPA exam, right?
Okay.
And we're also better than amateur. We are better than an amateur magician, okay, or something that's really off the beaten path.
Okay.
Right. I assure you, within that organization, there's going to be resistance to that person because they're good at something else that's not the core mission of the business. The problem is from the accountant / magician. I don't know if we can make this hypo any more ridiculous.
Okay.
From their perspective, though, not only does it erode your personal confidence, but if you can't deal with that resistance psychologically, and if you're not of a strong, you don't have a strong enough constitution to not worry about what everyone's thinking of you, it's going to start eroding your professional competence, because if your confidence level is shot about what your core interests are, it's going to bleed over into the nuts and bolts of your daily work that you're supposed to.
You're going to be unsure of yourself. You're going to be unsure of like what you should even say, because you're not right. It all becomes like
exactly.
It all either gets shot down or it doesn't get. There's not a creative collaboration or an environment to share ideas. And listen, let's be honest. Not every idea is going to be good. Some of them are going to be terrible. But you'd be surprised how sometimes you can get a good idea on the way back from a bad one. I've seen that happen plenty of times where it's like something gets thrown out, no one's kind of touching it. I look at it and go, wait a minute, what about that? Like, bring that back over. And I look at it and I see something different, and then I add to it, and now it becomes viable, right? I think that's what you're talking about.
I am. No, that's a great. Yeah. That's a great.
I want to give these guys some real things the way they can look at and think about creativity, so that they can leave here and think, what could they do right now after leaving here to add creativity to their life? Can I do that?
By all means. That's why you're here.
So this might come as a shock, maybe not. We were not taught to think creatively in school. In fact, Sir Ken Robinson says that we don't grow into our creativity; we get educated out of it. Okay, and that's just reality. And I would say middle school. I blame middle school for when people start to become self-conscious and maybe lose a little bit of their creativity or their uniqueness. But it's in there. We were all born creative. It's in there, okay? The reason I can say that is because you're all still here. And if you were a child once, and I'm pretty sure you were, you know the magic of what an empty box could feel like, a big refrigerator box, right? Think about how we see a big box in our house now. It's like, cut it up, get it in the recycle bin, get it out. Kids don't think like that. They're like, that's a rocket ship. That's a house. I can live in this. That's a boat. That's creativity. They're in touch with their wonderment, okay? And as we get older and, life happens and mortgages and, things and failures and jobs and divorces and all that stuff, that can start to really erode at your creativity. And there's things that you can do to kind of keep it in check. And these are the things that I wanted to share with you. One of them is hang on to your wonderment, okay? Retain a childlike curiosity with the world. That's why the book's called Child's Play. Yes, it's my last name, but it's also because if you want to taste genius, look into your childhood, because that's probably where it lives, or where it did live. Another thing is to, these cell phones, man, they rob us of our boredom. Now, that might not sound like a bad idea, but you know what happens when you get bored? You write screenplays, and you write a song, or you try something that you didn't do before because you're bored, and that's a good thing. But we don't get bored anymore because our phones are right there. Boom, bored for a second, waiting for a bus, here we go. And let's be honest, it's all just mindless kind of stuff, most of it. But I would say unplug, right? Take time to daydream. Let your brain quiet down. Ideas will not flow out of a cluttered mind, okay? So quiet it down, unplug, get away from the phone. I started keeping my phone in another room now when I go to bed. I got that from Simon Sinek. So we're going to see how that's working. But so far it's working pretty good. I'm going to sleep earlier, and I'm not doom scrolling. So that's good. Embrace change. Change is constant in life anyway, and it's definitely, if you're going to be someone who's going to live a more creative life, be open to change. Don't look at it as a bad thing. Look at it as an opportunity, because not all change is bad. And change has to happen in order for things to grow, in order for things to get better. And then the other thing I would say is just be curious. Be curious about things. Be curious about people. Be curious about, things that interest you. That's where your creativity is going to live. If I'm creating a recipe for you to be more creative, Wonderment, unplug, get rid of your phones for a couple hours a day, hang on to your curiosity, and embrace change. Just be willing to embrace change. And it can be a wonderful way to go through life, looking at life through a creative lens. I wouldn't change anything about my life. I love it. I just, it's the way I roll in the world. You know, I'm an eternal optimist, so I always think things are going to go good, even when they don't. That's another thing that's helped me, being an optimist. And it's creativity is just, it's one of those things where it just seems so simple, but it is so powerful. Here's another one. This doesn't really have anything to do with creativity, but you want to start changing your life, make your bed. I started making my bed after 30 years, and I was like, this is ridiculous. Why is this making me feel so good?
No, I'm with you on this one.
Like, yeah. And then I saw this video with this guy talking about make your bed. And I was like, oh, there it is. And I told my students, make your bed, you know. And it's crazy, but it works. It's like you go back into the room at night, the bed's made. And you know why it works? Because you're starting your day with an accomplishment. That's why it works. So that's simple little changes like that. Now, if you really want to jumpstart your creativity, find out things that you're not comfortable doing. You don't like going to foreign movies? Go see a foreign movie. You don't like eating certain types of food? Try that type of food. Music, different way to work, different way to school, because we all get stuck in those kind of ruts. That's another way to kind of like expand your comfort zone. It's just about trying new things and expanding that comfort zone and being willing to do that. If you can do that with everything, because creativity is not about output, it's about input. It's the conversations you're having. It's the people you're hanging out with. It's the places you're traveling to. It's everything. You see that? It's your life. And then, like, you know, you gotta come up with a new idea. It's where creativity shows up. And you know what? One of the things that creativity loves more than anything? Constraints. Constraints. That's how you force it into existence. Have, you know, all these limited budgets and stuff. That's great, but that doesn't really help you kind of find your creativity. I talk about it in the book as well. Embrace the constraints, you know. And there's certainly a lot of constraints out there. We have them in companies and at places. So look there as well.
If I can go back to 2 points you made that I think are really two sides of the same coin. Allowing yourself to be bored.
Yes.
Number one.
Yep.
And not losing your sense of curiosity. I think you can only be curious if you don't have this wave of video, you know, music, content, whatever it is, Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, Instagram. I know I sound like an old guy, but I hope if somebody knows the answer to this, I'm all ears. There must be a study out there. Now, I'm not a psychologist, obviously, but I suspect there is some study out there, or there will be soon, about how destructive consuming mass amounts of short form video are. Because if you walk, you will be able to see it around here somewhere. Just go walk around for a little while. And if you can observe people just scrolling, right? And if it's TikTok or Instagram or Reels on Instagram or Meta, and there's no narrative arc, there's no beginning or ending. It's a second or 2 or 3 seconds of someone being goofy, or someone falling off a roof, or a dog doing something cute, or a pet, or there are these snippets that do not connect from a narrative perspective at all. And I've been kind of looking at that the last few months, and I really will, if no one knows the answer, I'm going to find out, because I'm going to dive into that, because I think there will be a demonstrable reduction in critical thinking, problem solving.
Well, that's an interesting
creative
point.
output.
Yeah.
I would think will suffer, because if I can sit on the couch and all of a sudden the next hour and a half are consumed with these little blips, and I don't realize that time is going by, what else could I have done? You know, like, what else could I have done in that 90-minute block of time?
It's even worse than that. Simon Sinek, I got this from him. He has a video where he's talking about the cell phones. So let's say you and I are in a meeting, right? We're going to go in a meeting. What happens in meetings? Everyone's sitting on their cell phone waiting for the meeting to start, right? Well, the meeting starts, the cell phones go down, and now there's no connection. So let's say we're in that meeting, right? And we don't have our cell phones, right? might reach over to you and say, hey, Bryan, listen, hey, how's your dad doing? I heard he was in the hospital. And you're like, oh, yeah, he's doing okay. Thanks for asking. Then I might say, and this is from the video, might say, hey, do you need help with that report you were working on? I was like, yeah, you know what? I could use your help. Yeah, you know what? Stop by later in my office. That would not happen on the phone.
Correct.
And that's a connection that there's bigger implications there, because who knows what that work would have resulted of you and I working together.
Right. Yeah. This directly translates to companies' bottom lines.
Yeah.
Regardless of industry, or whether it's a manufacturing company or a service business, 100%. We just have we need somebody to study that and quantify that if possible.
Well, and then to add this, you got I looked this up just the other day. The World Economic Forum, okay? Top 3 skills for 2023. Okay? I have them right here. Number 1, analytical thinking. This is the World Economic Forum top core skills for job skills for 2023. Number 2, creative thinking. There you go. And number 3, resilience, flexibility, and agility. I didn't see cell phone ability to swipe, on there. But
index finger speed and dexterity, that's its own.
And
that'll be an Olympic sport soon.
Yeah. And then I'll hit you with this. You look at the 3 revolutions we've been through. We've been through an agricultural revolution, the industrial age, and now many people say we've entered the creative age. Richard Florida wrote a wonderful book called The Rise of the Creative Class, where he looked at people that work in a creative capacity, creating content. So musicians, engineers, writers, songwriters, everyone that kind of creates, content for and under a creative banner. And he believes that ideas are the currency of the new economy. So you better get comfortable with being uncomfortable and coming up with ideas and sounding silly and rejection and all of that stuff, because that's where our growth is going to live. So, it's vital. It's vital. And, you get to realize too, like, so much of what I learned in school turned out to not be right. Like, in other words, you want to succeed? Start failing. Now, when you say that to somebody, you're like, what? Fail? I don't want to fail. Yeah, it's because we stigmatized failure. Failure is important to success. Again, back to the boredom. You're bored. So you're like, when I was bored, I always just grabbed a coloring book and started coloring, problem solved. But to someone else, they might be, I'm going to try that song that I couldn't get on that one chord on my guitar. Goes and tries it, gets it. Thank you, boredom. Right? Boredom, and then who knows? Then that person goes on and writes a song that becomes a hit, and like all that other stuff that can happen. And Dick Bowe can talk about all that kind of cool stuff when he's on here. But creativity, yeah, it's confusing, and people are have trouble understanding it. But I'm here to demystify all that. I'm here to say you are a creative being. You have this power inside you, and if you're not using it, what are you waiting for? I'll give you an example. I read some chapters of my book to my wife before it was a book, and I'm reading them. And, I thought they were pretty good. I liked them. Pretty good writer. And she says to me, like nonchalantly, just plain as day, she goes, "What do you plan to do with that?" I said, "Well, I'd like to do a book." She's like, "What are you waiting for? You're 58 years old." I'm like, "Yeah, thanks for that." But you know what? It was the kick in the butt that I needed. It was like, okay, well, she believed in me. I'm doing it. And then, of course, Hugh McLeod, and there was another one. You guys know Donnie Deutsch? You ever hear of Donnie Deutsch? He had a big agency for a while.
He was everywhere for a minute.
Yeah, I know.
And then not.
Well, he wrote a book, and in one of the chapters, he said, why not you? Why not you? Why not you? So if you're someone who's sitting out there, maybe you got a screenplay you've been thinking about, maybe a book, maybe an album, a band you want to form, what are you waiting for? Do it. Right? You just never know. You got to put that stuff out in the world, and you can't worry about how it's going to be received. That's not your job. Your job is to create it, make it the best that it can be, and put it out in the world.
Before we break, I mean, this could go on for quite a long time, but we have a full schedule this afternoon. Do we have any questions for Bill? Yes, sir. So if you wouldn't mind, come on down, and there's a microphone right in the aisle. Okay, sir.
Yes. Okay, you can hear me. So you talked about creating a culture of creativity. In a scenario where you're trying to promote creativity and creative ideas, maybe a subordinate or someone approaches you with call it a bad idea, a known bad idea, or how would you approach continuing that creative spirit and not...
Just don't shut it down. You don't have to. Like, there's no reason for you to have to say anything like, "Oh, we tried that 2 years ago. That didn't work. That's ridiculous." Like, you don't say anything. That's all you'd have to do is just, and the way you want to, if you set up a creative environment, is just start listening more. Ask questions and listen, and be open to hearing some things that maybe you're not comfortable hearing about, like how things are in the company. You know, you have to, that's kind of how you have to be as a leader. You know, you got to take that kind of stuff in. But it really is about, I'll give you an example. Let's say we're in the meeting and we're talking about an idea, and you say something, right? I don't have to shut it down. I don't have to say, you know, that's ridiculous. I can't believe you would even say that, because all you really did then was guarantee that you're never going to say anything ever again. And then there goes, like, possible, even if you're going to say something bad, again, I can take a bad idea and maybe turn it into a good one, but I need it on the table first, and you need to be willing to kind of say it, right? Another one would be if I start talking about something. Let's say I start talking about something and you don't understand it. You don't know what it is. Well, then say that. Tell me that. Say that to the group. You know what? I'm not familiar with that. Can you? Yeah. I know, but wait, hang on. You want to build instant trust with someone? That's how you do it, because it shows that you're willing to listen. Which listening is the key to effective communication. That's what we talked about. You know that. But then, you know, just letting it be, and then saying, I don't know about that. And you're admitting, right? You're being vulnerable. You're admitting that you don't know about it. I'm telling you, that's huge. That's the way you can build trust. And then that person tells you, and now you've built something there. You can build on that.
Okay. I think we have one more. Come on up.
Hi. What would you say is the cardinal sin of advertising, like the worst possible practice that you've ever encountered, or maybe even like the work that you're least proud of, whatever it is?
You mean work that I've done?
Well, just in general, like either you've done or you've seen it done.
Well, I could tell you, I actually have a term for it. I call it Adverpanicking. And it's what I mean by that is I see so many, just even with billboards, too much information. You know, there's 5,000 messages aimed at the average consumer every day. And if you're just adding to the noise with all your stuff, like just, you know, not really saying anything, not really saying what you're really selling, you're going to end up with an ad that's going to look like an ad, and it just goes nowhere. So a lot of these messages and a lot of these companies need to start simplifying their message, telling their consumers what they're really selling as opposed to, you know, what they think they're selling. But my God, I mean, clean these messages up. Like there's no reason to have all of this what I call useless information. It's like infobesity. It's just too much. There's no nutritional value. It's just, you know what I mean? And you see those ads. You know what they look like. You
should trademark that quickly.
What?
Infobesity.
Infobesity. It's a new one. Adverpanicking. We'll have to talk about that too.
Okay.
But no, that's why, you know, even in my class, I teach advertising design, but I lean more on design, less on advertising per se, because people like advertising because it arrives at us like as an unwanted guest. You know, we don't enjoy being interrupted anymore. And for an example of that, when's the last time you got excited about somebody ringing your doorbell? Right? It's like, hide, somebody's at the door. Where that's kind of what's happened with advertising is that the messages have we've gotten so over communicated that it's just noise. And I hate that about the industry, is just that, and there's people still doing good stuff. You'll see it. Sometimes you have to go to major markets to see it. I know the Martin guitar stuff is awesome. Seen that over the years. There's somebody that knows what they're doing there. But that would be my guess or my answer to that.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right. Thanks, Bill. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcast platform. You can also subscribe to the newsletter. Visit us on the web at bryantuk.substack.com.